A union group in Corpus Christi assisted permanent residents today who are trying to become United States citizens. Marissa Cummings has more on what that process entails.
The local division of the American Federation of Labor and other union groups pulled together resources to make a one-stop shop for permanent residents wanting to become citizens. The Citizenship Clinic was filled with dozens of people at a time, but that came as no surprise to Montserrat Garibay. She's with the American Federation of Labor.
In the whole state of Texas, there's 1.1 million eligible permanent residents, and here in Corpus, there's about 8,000 eligible permanent residents.
And if those residents want to go one step further and become citizens, they have to start out by submitting an application to the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Office.
Then they get a letter where they get their fingerprints done. Then they have to do an exam, and then finally they do the ceremony, the oath to become a citizen.
But it's not that cut and dry. The cost can slow the process down.
For each application, it's upwards of $700. And so many of the permanent residents here have to gather that money, have to gather the paperwork.
And getting the proper paperwork can get complicated too. So the clinic provided professionals who could help free of charge.
Consultation with the attorneys, the consultation with the Mexican consulate, consultation with some of our people who are helping fill out the applications.
After everything is properly submitted, the whole process could take up to 2 years. If you need help applying for citizenship, Vera recommends contacting the Coastal Bend Immigration Coalition. Marissa Cummings, 3 News.